Hi, let's learn about object constructors. Up to this point, we've been creating objects with object literals, adding properties and methods during or after creation. This is great for one-off object creation, like this car, but less ideal to create 2, 3, or many cars. In some previous examples, we used helper functions like initPet here that created an object literal and then returned it. This made creating multiple pet objects much easier. In this lesson, we are going to formalize and streamline this function concept with what is known as the object constructor. An object constructor is a special function that has a blueprint for a particular object. When called upon, it creates an instance of that object, initializing all of its properties and methods. Although the notation is slightly new, it is very similar to functions we've been using. Think of a constructor like a specific object factory, producing individual objects whenever called upon. Here is the basic structure of a constructor for person objects. You'll notice that it looks like a normal function so far, with the only difference being the name, person, which is capitalized. Let's add a single property now and show how this function turns into a constructor. The key here is the this keyword. It's being used with dot notation here to create a name property and assigning it the value of the parameter of first name. The this keyword is telling the computer that when this function is called, we are going to construct an object, and we want that object to have a name property. This refers to the object that is being created. We're halfway there in telling the computer that this function is constructing an object. The last piece is in how we call this function. The important part here is the new keyword. We're basically saying the person function is an object constructor, and we want to create a new instance of a person object. This calls the person function, constructs the object with all of the defined properties and methods, and automatically returns it without needing a return statement in the function. We now have an instance of a person object stored in the person1 variable. This object has the name property with Carol as the value. Do you recognize this new keyword? If you've done any JavaScript graphics with CodeHS, then undoubtedly you've seen this before. That's because a graphic circle is an object, and it's created via a circle constructor. So you've really been using objects and object constructors for a long time. CodeHS made a circle constructor as a way to simplify how users make circle graphics. All they have to do is call the constructor and not know the details of how it is made. Obviously, this is the same for all of our graphic shapes, like rectangles, lines, web images, etc. Let's head back to the person constructor example and add a few more properties. Here we've added age, hair color, and hobby properties. A few things to notice here. We are including parameters so that when the constructor is called, we can send in unique values for the properties. While an object literal uses colons and commas to create the key value pairs, since this is just a function, we can use regular dot and bracket notation, equal signs, and semicolons. Since this is a constructor function, not an object literal, we can include things like normal variables, conditionals, loops, etc. inside to help do stuff during the object construction process. In this example, we use a conditional and the age to determine if the property in 20s will be set to true or false. And finally, as mentioned before, we don't need to include any return statements in the function. When called, this constructor will automatically return an instance of this object, as outlined by the function. Let's add a method to this constructor as well. Here we have a greet method with similar syntax as above. It's considered a method because the value associated with greet key is a function. Again, no commas or colons needed, just dot notation and an equal sign. When this method is used with an object, it will print the message, "Hi, I'm," and then include the name of the person object. Great! Now it's your turn to create your very own object constructors.